Stephen is a wonderful photographer that does some very interesting work. And we're meeting with him today in his studio. Thanks, Stephen, for being with us. And, I just want to get us started talking about your progress. You've been with us for several of our fairs. And what makes a successful show? What makes you decide, for example, to be in Spectrum Miami? What's that process like for you?
Well, it's been very interesting. I came to Santa Fe, where I live now, from Santa Barbara, where I showed regularly in a gallery there. And I haven't found the right situation here. But in Santa Fe, 3 years ago, I signed up for Art Santa Fe, Redwood show, and put a toe in the water. And I enjoy the experience. I had one follow-on sale, which was encouraging. But then I decided this year, after COVID, having done Red Dot in Miami last year and had a good experience, that I would really commit to a sequence of shows. So I decided to do Santa Fe, San Diego, Dallas, and Red Dot again this year. And commit to that, put my best foot forward. I also decided that having been in shared spaces previously, that I really felt that my work, which has some distinctive characteristics in terms of presentation and process, that I wanted to try having my own space in each of these shows. So that's what I did. What makes for a good show, number one, is you want to really concentrate on bringing your best work, and take time, ask your advisors, really curate thoughtfully. And I tried to do that. I also think it's important to remember that less is more. If you walk around these shows and look at booths that are perhaps a little busy, a little overhung, my belief is it makes it difficult for a viewer to really focus on a given piece if there's too much right around it. I noticed this between San Diego and Dallas. I had a little more open space in Dallas, and I think the work presented much better.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. I think another really critical thing, and it's very hard to be in one of these shows for all these days and not sell anything. But you have to believe. You have to believe in your work and be patient. There's an artist who I've met with in a lot of these shows who does very, very well in many of them. But she told me, I think in Dallas, she didn't sell anything. And she said her mantra is just, don't be bummed. Don't be bummed. Sometimes you're going to sell 5 pieces. Sometimes you're not going to sell any. So I think, those are some key things.
Well, and I think that's a really good point, because you even talked about, that you got some follow-up sales, and, that's part and parcel of what being at one of these fairs is. You're not there just to sell the artwork right there, and cover your costs. And I know that people get or can get really anxious about that. And I think that anxiety extends to the people that come by your booth. And I think that you being open and being there for the experience of it, as well as to gain opportunity,
Right.
opportunity to build your collector base, opportunity to meet a gallery, opportunity to meet with a designer, opportunity to also network with other artists and the galleries and the people that are around you. I think there's a lot of ways that being in a fair like one of Redwood's can be very profitable. Might not be
Absolutely.
monetarily profitable, but it can certainly give you opportunities that you may not even be aware of at that moment in time.
I think
And
one of the greatest resources at these fairs is other artists.
absolutely.
I've noticed every time my next door neighbor, which is an artist, a gallery, what have you, sharing a ladder, borrowing a hammer, but you learn things from people, and you learn about other show opportunities, not art fairs necessarily, but tent shows, other places. Somebody will say, gee, your work is terrific, you should try the show in Telluride, something like that. And that's really valuable.
Absolutely. And I think that, those kinds of experiences and building that kind of community is as important as building your collector base, because all of that is like that proverbial, pebble in the pool of water, and it's the ripples
Right,
that really build your business and your career.
right.
So you kind of talked about your booth display and what you think about, and I think you're 100% correct. And that we kind of talk about that pretty consistently in terms of don't overhang your booth, make sure that there's a focal point in your booth. If it's your best piece, then that goes on the back wall. So that is absolutely what people see, and it's a showstopper. And be careful about what you hang in the rest of the booth. Give the pieces some breathing room. Think about how somebody would hang it in their home.
Exactly.
Covering your walls with all of your work like it was wallpaper doesn't give anybody something to focus on or to really see. And we've seen it so many times where the attendees will just walk right by.
Right.
So think about that. But what kind of outreach do you do, Stephen? Like before the show, after the show? Do you use social media? What do you do to bring your collectors in?
Well, I think a couple of other things I would add just about how to operate your booth, that I think is important. And, you think about the dynamics, what's going on, around your booth. You, the artist, are standing there or sitting there, hoping to sell something. Visitors are coming, and sometimes it's amazing to see people walk by, glance into your booth, and just keep going. And you wonder, why is that? I believe that visitors are shy, many of them. And so I think a very good thing to do, number one, is don't be sitting at your table. One of the problems with the Redwood tables, if you have a lot of space, they're great. But if you have a small space, and you see this again and again, the artist will be sitting at their table, looking at their phone, and people are walking by. Well, there's no connection there. What I do is spend as much time out of my booth in the flow of people, looking back at my booth, and I bring my own table. I bring a cafe table, which is higher, with a stool, so it all takes up less space. But I keep it off to the side, and I don't sit at it. I'm out in the flow. So then, the booth is open and welcoming. So if the slightest little piece of an image catches somebody's eye, they will come in. And I have just found and then I can just go up to them, after a couple of minutes and say, hi, I'm here. If you have any questions, let me know. And I have found that that's a very good way to begin discussions and to talk about
Really
the work.
great point.
Right.
Wonderful point.
Right.
And it's hard. I get it. It's hard.
It is hard.
There,
Especially Thursday.
I think that you're really I've watched you at the fairs, and I see what you do, and I think those points are great ones. Yes, we provide a table, but don't put it in the middle of your booth
No,
where it can block entry. Put it over to the side, or you're very welcome to bring your own table. If you have questions about that, you can just ask us for advance approval if you're bringing some furniture.
right.
So, there's all of those kinds of things that, you think about in advance. So let's go back to that. What do you do for outreach, and how do you do it?
Well, all I did before this group of shows was some posts on Instagram. And Instagram is, it's something I'm developing. I'm happy to say I've doubled my number of followers in the last 3 months.
That's great.
But I'm not very good at it. That's my problem. But so I did that. I also sent a lot of emails and free passes to friends and family. And I'm not sure all of that adds up to much, but it really depends on what your social media base is. Mine isn't huge. I think for people who have been more active for more years, posting on Instagram is hugely important. And I also think that tagging Redwood and Art San Diego, Art Expo Dallas, Red Dot Miami, what have you, there's an acceleration of contacts and people seeing posts because you're a part of Redwood's publicity and marketing.
Well, and then
It helps.
tag us, our social media manager, Hannah, she'll repost that.
Yeah.
So it's each of us building on what the other one is doing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and then do you do follow-up when you've made contact?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm still trying various techniques to harvest email addresses. And I'm still going back and forth on what's the best way. I mean, because it needs to be easy and friction-free. But anyway, I gathered in Santa Fe, I think over 30 emails. And right after the show, an email went to all of them, thanking them for the visit, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll do the same thing. I just got back from the road because we did the Photo Fest in Houston after Dallas, which was interesting. So I have follow-up yet to do.
That's great. Well, and follow-up can do all kinds of things for you. It gives you feedback sometimes. It gives you insights. And of course, the best follow-up is with the people that bought something, because they're very likely to buy something else.
Yes. I also think that I have a pretty good website. But what I realize is that it's a bit static, and I need to find ways to introduce other messaging, like, hey, just back from Art San Diego and Art Expo Dallas, and shows were great, but put the news on the site. So somebody who took a rack card from my booth and decides, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Let's look at his work. They go there and immediately there's something to connect to where they were.
Yeah. Good point. Really good point.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to mention, Linda, is signage. I think some artists have not much to identify who they are and what they do above their booth. Some do. And I've found that I had somebody make a sign for me that looks very professional. I can mount it, take it down, put it in the crate. And either that or the black decals that can be done. But I think that's really important to project that you are an established artist, gallery, what have you.
I agree with you. I think that that kind of signage solidifies your presence, solidifies that you're not there on a whim. You're there, you're professional.
Right.
This is what your business is.
Right.
And, you know, whether it's very simply done and it's just, you know, a font and your name, or it really is a logo that you've developed.
Right.
And maybe that's one and the same. But, you know, I think that it's important high up on that back wall,
Right.
you know, to identify who you are. Every exhibitor gets a blade sign, but when you're walking down the aisles, you're really looking into the booths to, you know, to see what the artwork is, and you
Right.
get this reinforcement of who the artwork is by, if it's your name, if you're a gallery, what the gallery name is, and then again, for a gallery, identifying the various artists with vinyl signage becomes important as well.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
sharing with us today.